coastal wetlands. The next best hope for stopping the leak now won't be tried until at least early next week. It's called top kill. It involves pumping thick fluid into the leak site to stop the flow so it can then be sealed with cement. You're seeing, by the way, a live picture of the leaking oil right now. We still don't know, though, how much is actually gushing out of that broken riser. Our congressional correspondent, Brianna Keeler, has been looking into this for us. How can they stop this leak, Brianna, if they don't even know how much oil and natural gas is exploding from there?
And that's such a good question. And Wolf, the Obama administration has established a task force that is designed to answer that very question. This announcement coming at the same time that BP, under pressure from lawmakers, made these live underwater images available to the public. Now, I spoke with one of the experts who is working on this task force. He is Dr. Steve Worley from Purdue University. He was one of the first to say that BP's estimates of how much oil is gushing into the Gulf are way off the mark. And I asked him, wouldn't it have helped to see all of this new video weeks ago instead of just in the last couple days?
The better information and better videos would lead to a more accurate calculation, and that may have led to different outcomes in previous efforts to cap the well.
So your initial estimate, which was 70,000 barrels, what are we talking about, just the layperson in gallons here?
70,000 barrels is roughly 3 million gallons.
And that's per day. Now, are you thinking
that's correct,
that once you take into consideration the fact that some of the volume here is gas and that you just have better data on which to base your estimation, are you expecting that that will come down?
I would expect it might decrease somewhat, but I wouldn't expect it to be substantially different.
Substantially different.
I don't want to give
substantially different from your estimation, you mean, or from the official estimation that we've seen?
The BP estimate of the release rate is certainly wrong. And a number of scientists have already said that, myself included. And we've all come up with rates that overlap. So the range is 20,000 barrels per day to 100,000 barrels per day.
Now, Dr. Worley is expecting to have his own new estimate of the flow rate tonight, but he's not going to release it. He's first going to meet with other experts tomorrow. They are going to try to come up with one number between them. And I spoke with a spokesman for the National Incident Command who could tell me exactly what was going on with this task force. And I said, how quickly are you going to have this new flow rate number? He said soon, very soon, but he couldn't tell me necessarily that we would maybe get it tomorrow or maybe on Sunday. So we still don't know.
Explain to our viewers, Brianna, why it's so important to know this actual flow rate.
It has to do with that top kill method that they're planning on doing early next week that you mentioned at the top of the story. And basically the way Dr. Worley explained it to me, in order to know how much fluid you have to put into this well to kill it, it's important to know how much is coming out and at what pressure, and that is something that can really help them perhaps be successful in attempting to kill this well.
Because they're hoping to do this top kill by Tuesday or so, push this fluid in and then follow up with a lot of cement. And if they don't know how much is gushing out, they won't have the right mixture and it could fail.
Exactly. It's sort of the idea of if you were going into war, wouldn't you want to know the size of the army that you're dealing with? And that's sort of one way to look at this.
That's a good point. Brianna, thank you. While oil continues to follow the Gulf of Mexico and the Louisiana coast, there are now deep concerns about the chemical dispersants used to break up the crude from the leaking well. Federal authorities have ordered BP to use a less toxic chemical. CNN's Ed Levendera has been looking into that.
Wolf, BP now says they're looking at 4 alternatives of chemical dispersants. The EPA is forcing them to change the chemical they're using in the Gulf of Mexico. But one of those alternatives we know that BP has known about for quite some time. All of this that you're looking at is a less toxic dispersant. BP's known about it, but why is it sitting here outside of Houston, Texas? Hundreds of containers are just sitting here in the Houston sun. To some, it's just another example of the mismanagement of the oil spill. The containers are full of a chemical dispersant called Sebrat-4. Why is it sitting here and not in the ocean instead? No one really knows, especially since BP's on record as saying it would use the stuff.
We also have a second product now identified to use called Sebrat-4, which we'll begin introducing into the process as well.
That's what BP said almost a week ago, but we found the Sebrat-4 just sitting here in an industrial park outside of Houston, Texas. You're looking at it, almost 100,000 gallons of the less toxic dispersant. Guess who ordered it? BP did on May 4th, almost 3 weeks ago.
This is Seabrat. It's in totes, ready for delivery.
John Sheffield is president of the company that makes Seabrat 4. Do you think it's weird that the stuff's just sitting here in the Houston area?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You know, I think something's intentionally trying to stop us from getting our product in the water.
EPA and Coast Guard officials say there's nothing stopping BP from using Seabrat 4. Sheffield says that by now he could be making 50 to 100,000 gallons of dispersant a day. But a BP spokesman will only say the company had to use what was readily available and stockpiled, and it has been asked to find alternatives to the current dispersant Corexit, and that's what they're in the process of doing. Getting a direct answer is even hard for Congress to get, as they grilled BP executive Lamar McKay this week about the issue.
Who decided which dispersant to use? BP?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know the individual who decided which.
I didn't ask the individual. Was it the BP who decided, or was it the government who decided, or the National Incident Command?
I don't know.
You don't know. Could you find out for us, please?
Yes.
Easier said than done. There's still no word on who's making that call, while 100,000 gallons of potential help sits hundreds of miles away. A BP spokesman told me they're waiting on final approval from the EPA, but the EPA and Coast Guard says that's not the case, that they've always had the go-ahead to move forward with this Seabrat chemical. Interestingly enough, the company that makes Corexit has announced this week that they plan on making $40 million in profit by the end of this week. Wolf?